It affects everyone differently, and it's everyone's point of view. It's more than a talk show. It's a reality check. It's Reality Check with Monica Zukas.
Good evening. Another Friday night is upon us. Okay, a lot of times I like to do major controversial issues or push the envelope and, see how far we can take things to get a rise out of people. But tonight we're having a very serious, intelligent conversation. A lot of things have transpired in the last week or so. The tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut. I have a 9-year-old son, and he's a 4th grader at, one of our local elementary schools. And the thought of somebody busting in my son's school with a gun and taking the lives of 26 or 28 children and teachers is just, it's almost unbearable. And there have been many conversations going on since this happened. What do we do? Many people are quick to blame the guns. Some people are quick to blame the mother of the young man that carried out this tragedy. And I thought, you know what, tonight I'm going to try to get a principal of a school. I'm going to try to get somebody that has something to do with guns, preferably a member of the NRA, and also a mental health specialist, and try to get them together so we can kind of make some sense of this and see locally what's going on. And I found it rather humorous that I talked to one of my friends who, is a gun owner and very pro-gun, and I contacted him, and he said, I have guns. I think guns are great, but let me refer you to somebody else that I admire. And I got a hold of that person, and he was a Vietnam vet, a member of the NRA, and a local attorney, and he said, yes, I am all of those things, but let me refer you to somebody else I admire. And I came up with a man named Larry Morris, who is a member of the NRA. He's certified pistol, rifle, shotgun, personal protection instructor, and training counselor. And I thought, okay, wow, I'm working my way up the ladder here. And I had the privilege to take one of my friends with me today, and we got to go to a local range. And I have not had that much experience with guns, and I am not afraid to say I was, kind of scared. All my friends hunt, and I've been around guns a lot, but I wasn't very well versed in guns and hadn't really got hands-on. And in an hour and a half, the things I learned from this man about guns, about safety, about, in the hands of the proper people, they're a tool that can save lives. I was very, very impressed. And it gave me a whole new perspective on guns in general. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about himself in a minute. And I thought it was funny that I climbed the ladder to him very quickly, and then I got a hold of a principal that was willing to come in very quickly. But I had a dear friend of mine that works in the health field, and she talked to 6 different psychiatrists today, and all of them, they had the excuse of, well, because of my contract or because of my prior engagement this evening, I'd rather not. And I thought, because one of, personally, my main issues with this whole thing is it seems like an underlying thread of all these disasters is not necessarily guns, because Timothy McVeigh used bombs, and other people that committed heinous acts used different weapons other than guns, is mental illness. And some people are misdiagnosed, not well enough medicated, or over-medicated. And I had a conversation with my parents earlier, and I kept using the word the drugs. I feel like a lot of this has to do with the drugs. And my mom kept saying, you mean like cocaine or marijuana? I said, you know what? Everybody that I know smoking weed's home eating snacks. And a lot of people on coke are just having a few extra beers and maybe, romping around a little extra. But a lot of the psychotropic drugs, or the ones that make you really wacky, are prescription drugs. So that's one thing I want to touch on tonight. And, we'll leave the seat empty for the mental health specialist. Maybe there's one out there listening that would like to, chime in. And I'd also like to welcome Andy Shelby. He is the principal of Heron Elementary. And there's just so many facets to this issue this evening. And I want to start off with Wayne LaPierre came out today and made a statement for the NRA. And I noticed that Facebook was blowing up either for commending him for his comments. I was kind of surprised at how many comments were in the nay. They're not very sympathetic. They blamed everything except the guns, blah, blah, blah. And Larry Morris, being a member of the NRA, what is your take on this statement coming out today?
Well, first of all, thank you for the gracious introduction. I wasn't sure you were talking about me there for a minute.
I was. We had a very good time today, and my friend kept saying, he's such an excellent teacher. I'm not afraid of guns anymore either, and that's all we kept saying all the way home. So thank you so much for taking your time for us.
Good for you, not a problem. Listen, the NRA has been the whipping boy for gun crime for probably the past 30 years. Essentially, the last week since the event happened in Connecticut, they've been criticized for actually not coming out and saying anything. Then today, when LaPierre came to the stage and said, here's what we're going to do, we're going to invest millions in a school program that will prevent or mitigate the circumstances here when you have a school shooting, and we're going to give it away for free to any school district that wants it, then he's criticized for being insensitive, right, and not having any feeling for the children that happen. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't deal a situation. You just can't please everybody. And when I say please everybody, mostly it's the liberal media at the top end, the New York end, obviously not you I'm talking about here, that make these criticisms.
Yeah, I get criticized because I just put it all out there. A lot of people want to hear what I have to say every week. They like the topics and that I'm pushing the envelope, but nobody wants to publicly come on and give their stance. Yeah. They like to stay home and listen, which I appreciate. Thank you so much for listening. And I know that they want to hear. But it is time for us to have this discussion. It's time for the mental health specialist to, I wanted to have one here to say, I have a 9-year-old son right now. What types of things should I be looking for in my son when he's 13 or prepubescent or going into adolescence? What are the things I need to look for? Can this be prevented? Whenever he maybe be withdrawn, we all think we know what to look for. But for instance, and the mother who, the Lanza guy, I know he killed his mother, but things that I think we know for sure is that as a sophomore in high school, she decided to homeschool her son because she said he was becoming more withdrawn and she was fearful of him. Another thing we know for sure is that she also had semi-automatic rifles and pistols in her home and took the son that she was fearful of to the shooting range. Does that make any sense to you at all? Why would she do that?
Look, I'm going to tell you, I think this young lady was being a mother as best she knew how.
Right.
Protecting her son, doing the homeschooling and other things like that. The place where I think that you can maybe impugn her judgment is the fact that she should have had those guns locked up safely so that she had the only access, and this young man did not have access to them. And I think that goes for children, period. The gun safe is probably the biggest issue in this thing from the standpoint of criticism of this young lady. Otherwise, I think she was trying to do a good job at raising this troubled individual.
And, I want to talk to Mr. Shelby a little bit about we shouldn't have to, especially with our kindergarten through 5th graders, talk to them about things like this. We talked a little bit off the air before, we started the show. When we were children, it wasn't like, oh, this happens every 1 or 4 years. This did not happen. I mean, I graduated in 1994. Andy, I don't know when you graduated, but can you ever remember a time in the history of you being kindergarten through senior or even into college where there was a school shooting?
Never. I mean, the thing you got to think about, first of all, my heart and thoughts go out to these Sandy Hook people. I mean, the Connecticut people are suffering in all different ranges, and from the heart of everybody, we want to think about them and think about these children. These incredulous eyes come in every day, and I have the duty of protecting them. And this was probably 9/11 of our, or Pearl Harbor of our generation. And this needs a lot of thought.
It does. And, I talked to my sister-in-law, who also has 3 small children, before the show, and we said, what can we do? What's a good idea? What shouldn't we do? What should we do? I mean, I know there's statistics. I know there's laws and regulations. And one of the things that you said to me, Larry, today was, and I would like you to talk about now, the things we do protect with guns and security or what?
Well, my wife works at a bank, and you think about this makes all the sense in the world. The Brinks guy, when he shows up at the bank to bring the money or to take the money away, what's he got on his hip? He's got a pistol on, right? So we think enough of our money to protect it.
Right.
Chicago aldermen are able to carry conceal. They're the only people in the state of Illinois authorized to carry conceal outside of off-duty cops. We've got protection for the high-profile Hollywood people. If you're a high-profile sports figure, you get protection. But we leave our kids unprotected. Now, I guess I would ask you, what is your most important resource here? Some high-dollar Hollywood athlete, or is it your children? Okay,
without a doubt.
This is a simple answer to me. If you answer that any other way than your children,
right?
I think you need some help from the psychiatrist that wouldn't come down here tonight.
Yeah, where are you? Where are you at a Christmas party? Because, we're kind of wanting to protect our sweet, innocent children here. And there's so many different facets to it, but we have to protect our babies. And we're not in the best way we know how. And like I say, to have an armed guard at the school sounds upsetting to me. But we have to do what we have to do in these times.
Can I ask you why it's upsetting to you?
Because I feel like it maybe robs them of their innocence. This is my knee-jerk reaction to the question. I feel like whenever you go to school, especially in elementary school, you're worried about recess and who you like and eating snacks at lunch and whether, I remember, it was a big deal whether there was enough chocolate milk left than white milk. And I feel like when you walk in and the first thing you might see is possibly somebody in uniform with a gun, it gives you maybe a connotation of, is something going to happen? Why are you here? Could somebody hurt me?
A question for you. Who do you call when you need help?
911.
That's right. And who's the guy that shows up?
911.
It's a good guy with a gun, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You call a guy with a gun to show up to help you out.
Right.
I don't think children should be shielded from that. And I'm like you. My thoughts when I was in grade school was what's for lunch and things of that nature. What are we going to do when we go outside during recess? And those are children's thoughts. But we're adults now, and we're responsible for those little people. We need to be doing the best thing we can do to protect them, whatever that might be.
One thing we have at my son's school, and I am not going to dare say the name of that because why? But you have the initial double doors you walk in, and then about 10 feet from that, there are locked doors. And I had an extensive conversation with my son's principal today, who also had prior arrangements for this evening. But there were things that I didn't know they had in place. I didn't know that every classroom in my son's school has, in essence, like a panic button or a button that can be pushed that directly buzzes the office and won't stop until it is answered. I didn't know that. He also went over with me, Mr. Shelby, I don't know the correct terminology for it, in the red folder by every door, what is this several-page pamphlet that tells different crisis, like codes or something?
Well, I've had the luxury of being in probably 4 different schools where it's a grab and go. And this red folder is an unfortunate sign of our times, but at the same time, it's instilled for the safety of our children. So, at Heron Elementary, what we have is you have a plan. You have a monthly drill that we go through every day that the kids are in routine with. And from that, you have an example for them to be safe and be responsible for each other. So the teachers all know it. Every school in the state of Illinois is required to have it. But unfortunately, it's a sign of our times where we have to really look in some serious detail at, how to make it safer.
Well, and we all know what to do for a tornado. We're going to get in the hall, we're going to get close together, we're going to tuck our head and cover and protect our head. When it's an earthquake, we all know for sure we're getting under our desk and holding on for dear life. It almost brought me to tears today when I saw the grab and go crisis pamphlet or whatever it was. It said earthquake, tornado, child abduction, school intruder or shooting, and I thought, oh my God, what does our world come to? We have a grab and go for the teachers, and it said soft lockdown, hard lockdown. And I talked to Mr. Fletcher a little bit, and he was telling that there used to be, like, quote, code words for all this.
Yeah.
And then was there a state mandate where they said, forget the code words, say hard lockdown?
Yeah, we just absolutely just tell it what it is.
And say, for instance, if you have a hard lockdown, what does that mean to each teacher in each room?
Absolutely get to a safe place. Close the door. It's locked. Get the light out. Make sure it's like something of the sort where you're not even there. If there's active shooting or God forbid some kind of death involved, we make sure the kids get to a place where there's not that going on. So we at that time we make what I call a game time decision. You've got to get the kid to a safe place, and that's what we do.
And we have to take a quick break, and I want to talk a little bit about, we see several heroes and heroines emerging from the Sandy Hook. Mrs. Soto or Miss Soto, I want to talk about her a little bit when we come back. We have to take a quick break. This is Monica Zukas. Tonight we're talking about the Sandy Hook tragedy. I have with me a member of the NRA and a local principal. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.